COVID-19 has made a few things very clear. First, that our political and economic systems are not designed in the interest of human life. Second, that our environment is better off in the absence of commerce. And third, that our lifestyles are unhealthy and revolve too much around our jobs. Common among all of these revelations is that the underlying problems existed long before the COVID-19 pandemic. Before that, they manifested as conflicts in the Middle East, the refugee crisis, the Great Recession, the war on drugs, and climate change. What we are not seeing, or not willing to see, is that these catastrophes we find ourselves in are symptoms of our massively problematic socioeconomic system. They are not anomalies. These catastrophes will not stop until we address the underlying cause. In fact, these catastrophes will continue to get worse. Normal was the crisis, and that is why we cannot go back. We live in a world of great abundance, an abundance of land, food, shelter, and technology. Technology which is constantly increasing our capacity to produce said abundance. So why is it that so much of humanity lives in poverty? Why is it that 1 million tons of surplus rice and grain rot in silos? Why is it that hotels have enough vacant rooms to light up hearts, while the homeless are given taped-off slabs of concrete outside? And then, out of the blue, governments approve trillion-dollar aid packages and send checks to their citizens. It's proof that we have always been able to satisfy everyone's needs, but our inherently flawed system prevented it. It is the monetary market exchange system, its underlying philosophy and rules, that are the problem. Such a system survives by maintaining scarcity. Not only a scarcity of products to keep prices high, but scarcity as a lifestyle and as an economic mindset. Governments are pushing to reopen the economy because the economy depends on the working class, something else that's been revealed, but also because governments know that the working class can't afford to stay home. Yes, if we go to work, we might get and spread the virus, but if we don't go to work, we might starve. And we are seeing many people trying to exercise what minimal choice they have in a way that preserves some sense of dignity or honor. They are going back to work to put food on the table, unwilling to see themselves as victims. We want to call these people ignorant or irresponsible, but let's be clear. Fellow members of the working class are not the enemy. It is now apparent that one of the main reasons COVID-19 spreads so rapidly is because governments, such as those in the United States and China, played down and even arguably covered up the severity of the coronavirus because they knew it was politically and economically devastating. It is no wonder that these countries were hit the hardest. Public healthcare and education, institutions that protect and empower the population, have been overlooked for decades. Governments are playing the only game they know how to play, one where resilience and sustainability are sacrificed for efficiency and productivity. We've seen this play out before, but on a much larger scale: climate change. We have known about it for decades, and there have been almost no substantial systemic changes to address it. Conspiracy theories and disinformation peddled by the political and economic elite attempted to delay the inevitable. Both of them working together and working just as they were designed at our expense. We know that a growing economy corresponds directly to worsening environmental conditions. And now we also know that an economy on pause corresponds directly to improved environmental conditions. The normal we would return to was one that was already headed towards catastrophe. We must not return to normal because normal was the crisis. This begs the question, if not back to normal, then where? If not capitalism, then what? To answer that, we can look at the 3 Pillars of Activism by Joanna Macy, one way that we can identify what the alternatives are and how we get there. We must be willing to build new systems, facilitate shifts in consciousness, and prevent further harm in the meantime. All 3 pillars are critical, and no one form of activism will do the trick. The situation we are in now is essentially a case study, and a shift in consciousness is already occurring. The global test case has proven, for example, that our current systems are fragile, that we are capable of radically changing our lifestyles almost immediately, and that most of our jobs are non-essential. Not only do we spend an excessive amount of our lives working these jobs, but many contribute nothing to society. Many are superfluous, not created out of a need or demand or the well-being of humanity for that matter, but out of the desire to extract value. Value, most of which goes to the capitalist, not the worker. Here we are labeling jobs otherwise underpaid and undervalued by society as essential. This is why we need a massive values reassessment. COVID-19 is allowing us to realize that the true value is first and foremost in meeting our basic needs. It is in safety and belonging, connectedness with nature, ourselves, and our community. Having the time and energy to address these global challenges, however, is especially difficult for those they affect the most, those who don't have the luxury of seeing beyond their most essential daily needs. This is why holding actions are so important, as they address those immediate needs and prevent worsening conditions for the most vulnerable populations. Climate strikes, rent strikes, supporting food banks, providing housing, universal healthcare, and education would all be considered holding actions. A universal basic income, something we've seen implemented during the lockdown in countries around the world, is also a holding action. It holds governments responsible for helping to meet the basic needs of citizens. It could be a crucial step in the process of building a new, better alternative, because by meeting everybody's basic needs, we can break free from that oppressive, artificially generated cycle of scarcity and begin to think about the future. Holding actions make the revolutionary transformation accessible. However, they would be endless and futile if there weren't also people working to address the root causes of such inequities. The 3rd pillar is to build new political and economic systems. Part of shifting the consciousness is to break from this rigid dichotomy of capitalism versus communism, democracy or autocracy. There is, in reality, a whole world of possibilities, with historical precedent and evidence to back them up. Many activist groups are now organizing to align and synchronize their efforts because they too see and understand there are so many great regenerative ideas that make sense. We must be willing to embrace them, knowing that the status quo just won't do. A universal basic income paired with a 20-hour work week can help us transition to something even more prosperous, like an open access economy, where we shift from ownership to stewardship, having access to basic goods and services whenever and however we need them, without a price tag, finally benefiting collectively from the abundance our world provides. As COVID-19 has proven, we are able to maintain essential infrastructure, even with far less people going to work. We were all forced into the great pause, but now, as they beckon us, we have a choice, knowing more clearly than before just how empowered we are. We could dismantle our degenerative systems simply by us choosing not to go back. No problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it. We are in a raging river, scared and holding on to a branch, battered by the rapids. Only when we recognize that our system of government and our economic systems are not only outdated, but flawed in their design, can we let go, scary as it may be. But we can take solace in the fact that we have somewhere to go, things to do, and that is designing a new system that makes the existing one obsolete. We are already in the chrysalis, so to speak. That much is true. whether we emerge a beautiful new creation is up to us. Stay tuned.